Wow. Never have I ever received more requests for a cookie than for this Dubai chocolate cookie. If you're not familiar with the Dubai chocolate bar, you're probably like me and maybe you live under a rock a little bit, no judgment. This is a viral chocolate bar that is well known for its kind of gross looking interior, if you ask me. I think that's what's catching a lot of people's eye. It has a really interesting texture, super popular, and a bar in New York City cost me $20. It's not cheap, and I had to buy a couple so I could do some research. So let me tell you how to make it. First, get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, let's talk ingredients. You are going to need 2/3 cup of pistachio cream for this recipe. This is pistachio cream, not pistachio butter. I buy mine on Amazon because I can't find it in my local stores, but I also kind of live in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this into a bowl, and I am going to link to exactly where you can buy pistachio cream on Amazon if you also can't find it where you live. It's a bit pricey, so I am also going to, over on my website, share a recipe to make a homemade pistachio cream. Pistachios aren't cheap, but it's still cheaper to make your own than it is to buy a jar. Now this recipe is going to make a dozen cookies. Usually I aim for more cookies than that, but I wanted to keep it at a dozen because you can buy one jar and make a batch of cookies this way. If we did my larger usual batch, you'd have to buy 2 jars, and then I just felt like the price was kind of racking up a bit. However, if you want to buy more and double it, this recipe doubles, no problem. We tested it. So while pistachio cream is something you could make at home, this is the ingredient that you're going to have to buy. This is kataifi. This is a shredded, toasted phyllo dough. Not easy to make at home, and if you try, you're probably going to end up with a soggy interior for your Dubai cookie, which is just sad because it's supposed to be crisp. That's the whole point. Also available on Amazon. This is $9. Pistachio cream is usually about $13. If you don't want to buy it, don't want to try the cookie, I understand, but a lot of people want to make it, and for, what is that, 23, 24 bucks, you're going to get a dozen gourmet cookies. Stack that up besides a $20 chocolate bar. I think it's a really good deal. We're going to need 2/3 cup of the kataifi. Let me go ahead and measure that out. Oh, don't waste it. It's not cheap. The box got a little busted in the mailbox. Use my hands a little bit. Oh! Be careful. Oh, and if you don't buy this brand of kataifi or one that's already toasted, see how it's nice and toasty, got all the brown bits in there. If yours isn't toasted, you're going to have to toast it, so I really like this brand. Okay, let's go ahead and mix this together. Oh man, we've got a lot of kataifi here, or kataifi, if you're pronouncing it how I was about 5 minutes before I started this video and looked it up so nobody would make fun of me. Okay, we'll save that. We don't waste butter, we certainly don't waste kataifi. All right, we'll stir this together until everything is nicely incorporated. Should sound nice and crunchy, look a little bit weird. I kind of think that's the whole point and why this thing went viral, but I will say the cookies do taste amazing, so it's more than just weird looks. All right, grab yourself a pan, line it with some wax paper, and we are going to scoop some dollops for our filling. 1 tablespoon-sized scoop makes things nice and easy. We're just going to drop them on our baking sheet because these are going to need to freeze or you'll never be able to get your cookie dough around them. You might have just a smidge extra. This stuff isn't cheap, so we are going to scoop it, and if we don't have enough cookie dough for it, we're just gonna eat it because it is pretty good. All right, let's pop this in the freezer so it can start to really firm up while we make our cookie dough. These drop-in freezers drive me a little bit nuts, especially when I'm using it for my baked goods. All right, moving on. Let's make our cookie dough. Again, we're making a nice even dozen cookies, but this recipe doubles great. We're going to start with 1/2 cup, it's 113 grams of unsalted butter, and we're going to microwave this. And evidently I don't know how to work this thing. Okay. All right, our butter is nice and melted. Now, for such a decadent, indulgent, and like fancy cookie, we want a really indulgent chocolate cookie base. You might actually recognize this one. I've used it before for my black bottom cookies, as well as maybe a few others. While the butter is hot, we're going to add, or at least warm, we're going to add our cocoa powder. This is a 1/4 cup or 25 grams natural cocoa powder. Let me see if I have a spatula in here. Too bad I don't have a green one. That would really match the theme. And we are going to stir the cocoa powder in while the butter is still warm. Benefits of this twofold. We are blooming the cocoa powder, which is giving us that super intense flavor, and we are cooling down the butter because we can't actually move forward with this recipe until that butter is cooled. And then at this point, once that's nicely combined, you could have added it with a cocoa powder, but now I'm going to add a tablespoon of oil. So this is a neutral cooking oil. I'm using avocado, but canola, vegetable, sunflower, any of those would work fine. And we're adding it in now. Again, just help cool down the butter a little bit. It's just a good time to add it. Don't go any further with this recipe until this no longer feels warm to the touch. So you want to feel the mixture, you want to feel the bottom of the bowl. If it feels warm, put on the brakes or you're going to have a bad time. Your cookie dough will melt. Once it's cooled, we're going to add our sugar. You need 1/2 cup or 100 grams of granulated sugar. And by the way, if I forget to mention any weights, I do always put them in the description. There is a printable recipe in the description. I try to give you everything you need down there just in case I miss something here. We'll also add 1/3 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar, as well as 1 large egg. Hold on a minute. These eggs come in many different sizes these days. That is like a jumbo egg. That's large. When I test these recipes, I weigh the eggs to make sure I'm actually using a large egg, like a standard large egg. Next, chocolate does not reach its full potential without vanilla, so we're going to be adding vanilla extract. We'll add 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Still haven't bought that 3/4 teaspoon, so we're gonna dirty 2 spoons today. Oh man, it's smelling so good right about now. Vanilla will do that. All right, stir everything together. And if I didn't mention it, your egg should really be room temperature. A cold egg could kind of shock the batter and make it difficult for everything to combine properly. So really all of your ingredients should be the same temperature. We're looking pretty good here, so let's grab a separate bowl for our dry ingredients. And we'll start with our cake flour. This is 1 3/4 cup of cake flour. I do use cake flour for a reason. It gives you a super tender cookie. Like if you're someone who's selling these cookies, cake flour makes such a difference. It's worth it to buy it in my opinion. But if you don't have cake flour, you plan on just substituting all-purpose, don't just sub it out. Please see my note in the description for how to properly substitute or you're gonna have a bad time. Next, our leavening agents. See which one's which. This is 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of table salt. And if I have a whisk, we'll whisk everything together. Now somebody got a little upset with me in my last video where I used cake flour. They were like, cake flour is expensive, you're judgmental. No, I get cake flour is expensive. I do not judge you if you substitute all-purpose flour. I just don't want you to take the amount of cake flour called for and use all-purpose flour because your cookie will not turn out and then you'll be mad at me. So I'm just trying to make sure you know what to expect when you're making the cookies. Let's bring back our wet ingredients and gradually add your dry ingredients to the wet and stir to combine. I usually do this in like 3 or 4 parts. And I am not using a mixer for this recipe because when you use melted butter, everything comes together really well. But if you want to use a mixer, you can. Just don't overdo it. Okay, now here's where I will judge you a little bit. If you get to this point where everything's combined and your dough is too sticky to use, your ingredients were probably a little bit too warm, you probably didn't listen to me, and the dough is going to be too difficult to work with. I try to make this recipe so that you could go right into stuffing it, but if you can't, I do forgive you, but pop your dough in the fridge, cover it, and pop it in the fridge until it's manageable. How long that's going to take just depends on how sticky it is when you put it in the fridge. But I would check it after 15 minutes. And I'll only judge you a little bit because even I sometimes don't follow my advice and then I end up where you may be. And let's check on our pistachio filling. All right, that's cold, but as you can see, these are pick-upable. Do not move forward until they are nice and firm. And I'll try to move quickly because I don't want them to start falling. For the cookie dough, we're going to scoop about 2.5 tablespoons of cookie dough. So I use my 1.5 tablespoon scoop. I do 1 scoop and then I do like half of a scoop. If you're using a scale, it'll be a lot more precise. Aim for 48 grams of dough per cookie. Of course, you don't have to use a cookie scoop. You can just use a pair of spoons, use your hands, but I love using this cookie scoop. It's one of my favorite kitchen tools. Scoop out a couple of these. All right, and I've scooped 6 because we're going to be baking 6 at a time. We'll go ahead and roll these into a smooth ball. Then we're just going to make an indent down to the center of the cookie dough, take out one of these pistachio fillings, and we're going to wrap the dough around it. Now you need to make sure the pistachio is completely concealed. If it's sticking out at all, just grab your dough and add a little bit more of that to patch anything. You don't want the pistachio filling escaping because it will try. If your pistachio is getting too soft, just pop it back in the freezer. Now I'm going to bake these cookies center rack of the oven for 9 to 10 minutes. Now, with the way we've made these, they're going to bake up fairly flat, like a regular cookie, I should say, not necessarily flat. If you want a thicker cookie, you can pop this in the freezer, chill it, 30 minutes, an hour overnight. The longer you chill it, the fatter your cookies will be, like the thicker they'll be. All right, into the oven. These look great. Now I am going to tell you a little optional step that I like to do. I like to take a measuring cup and gently flatten each cookie, just gently. Oh, I know this is so contrary to those big, fat, thick cookies that are really popular right now. But just like with my double chocolate chunk cookies, this helps compact the cookie a little bit and makes it extra fudgy. It just makes for a better eating experience in my opinion. It's also not that big of a deal. So do what you want. Ooh, do half one way, half the other, and you tell me what you like better. But wait, we are not done. First, make sure you let your cookies cool completely on the baking sheet or they're going to fall apart. They need to be a little bit underdone when you pull them out of the oven. That's going to keep them nice and soft for days. Because of that, they're super fragile when they're warm, so let them cool. Once they're cooled completely, we are going to melt some couverture or semi-sweet chocolate. You can use white chocolate, milk chocolate, whatever you like. This is a 1/3 cup. Once it's nice and melty, go ahead and drizzle it over our cookies. And this amount of chocolate will cover all 12 cookies. Then I like to crush 2 tablespoons of pistachios. These are roasted, salted pistachios. And while that chocolate is still nice and melty, we'll go ahead and sprinkle those on top. Oh, they're so pretty. Kind of want to add a little bit of edible gold leaf just because these are supposed to be so, you know, like high-end and luxurious. All right, the big moment. And if Dubai stuffed cookies aren't your thing, check out my black bottoms I just shared. Same idea, but just a completely different filling. Oh, it's so weird, but it's so good. It's crunchy, it's perfect. It's better than a $20 chocolate bar any day. Wow.